Greetings everyone, Rio Grande fan here, again at Doug and Barbara Geiger's Granite Mountain Railway. It has been 5 years since we filmed this railroad, and I figured it's time for a little bit of an update. Not a whole lot has changed, but there's a few things that are new, so we'll get on with the tour here. I do have a train prepared to run this time, so if anyone's familiar with the video from 2014, we didn't run a train. We're going to follow a train in the same direction as the original video around the layout. So here we go. We're down here in staging. This is Chicago, the east end of the railroad. You can see a lot of BN trains originate and terminate here in Chicago. All the car cards are how we run the trains. Each train has a car card packet, and the crew grabs one of the packets for their train, and it has all of the car cards they need. Some trains do some switching along the way, and so they have to know where to set the cars out. Other trains just run from one end to the other. And some trains, some of the BN trains, do power swaps in Mesa Yard. They'd get a whole new locomotive and caboose for their train to go over the Granite Mountain. Granite Mountain Railway is a bridge route combining the BN, the Santa Fe, the Rio Grande, the Milwaukee Road all together, and handles all the bridge traffic plus its own traffic. So coming out of Chicago staging, the train would actually go that direction behind the wall and into a helix on the other side of the room. And this hasn't changed from before. We still get trains in and out of staging using the toggles to turn on the track power. The rotary knob selects your switch. And of course the railroad is operated by Digitrax, so we have Digitrax throttles we have to plug in. It's all simplex. Usually when the dispatcher gives the green, that's when the train can depart, and you follow your train up the red lights to Bremer, which is right above us. And as I incorrectly mentioned in the last video, Bremer is modeled after Denver. Although, to me, it does look a little bit more like Chicago, with the tracks that go underneath Union Station here. So I said we're going to follow a train, and I've pre-set the train out of Chicago on the main line, so we don't have to wait for it to come up the helix. And this is what would happen during a normal operating session. It would come out here on the main line. Now the track it's on is the BN main in the back. Technically, being a Granite Mountain train, it should come into Mesa Yard, because that is the end of the line for Granite Mountain trains. But for the video, we'll just send it on the main. It's a little easier than navigating all the puzzle switches here in the yard. Doug has also acquired some new locomotives for the railroad, which you'll see here as we go along. You can see that Mesa Yard is a little more full this time. I was thinking back, and I don't believe that we've run the snowplow since the last video, actually, so it's been 5 years. We haven't had a snowstorm on an operating day, which requires us to run the snowplow. So Mesa Yard is full. The longest track you see here, I believe, is going to be for another Portland train. All those cars are set up to go to Portland. I'll briefly pan down here so you can see how we do that. So we have a car card bill box here. Waybills and tracks are set up for different trains that are going out. Mesa local, some Portland stuff, some other forwarders. I'm going to pause our train here just a little bit while we pan around. Our train is on the Granite Mountain Main behind Colorado Can going up the grade. We'll just sort of pause him right there. So I can talk about Colton a little bit. Colton is this area here right in front of us that is switched by the Rio Grande. And same as the last video, actually. The track hasn't changed. It's still 5,000 feet of hand-laid track. Not a whole lot has changed in Colton, although some keen viewers might notice the Santa Fe bridge has been replaced with one that actually lifts now. I don't have the ability to make it go up and down at the moment, but normally when a Santa Fe train is coming either from Los Angeles, which is the tunnel there on the left, or going to Los Angeles, the bridge will automatically lower for that move. We pretend like the trains have the right of way, I suppose. There's not a lot of boat traffic on the little river, so the bridge just lowers. Santa Fe trains also do have the right of way across the diamond, and the Rio Grande trains have to wait. The Rio Grande trains come from the back by the water tower. Don't want to really zoom in too much on that, but that's where they come from. Both those tracks converge in the wall. There's a lot of hidden track here. Colton Tower operator gets to use a little mini CTC machine here to control the traffic on the Rio Grande and the Santa Fe up and down out of what we call South Yard. Also doubles as Los Angeles and Colorado Springs. And again, all the staging yards work the same with the toggle switches and the rotaries to get the trains in and out. Both tracks converge and come down here into this yard. And again, there's car packets. And the Colton Tower operator also has a lineup sheet during an operating session so that he knows what trains are coming and going and all that jazz. And these do change per each session. There's 4 rotations, 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. So we can operate 4 times essentially before things start to kind of repeat. So back to our train. You'll notice the power on our train, SD60. It's brand new to the Granite Mountain, painted in Granite Mountain colors. Kind of possibly an experimental scheme. We don't know at this point, but it is certainly unique. The signals that you'll see along the way are fully functional during an operating session. They're controlled by a real CTC machine off the Santa Fe. I don't have the ability to turn on the machine, or I would do so. Passing IMCO here, this is where the Mesa local will switch out cars, mostly cement cars, on its way back to Mesa Yard. Train is heading now into Granite Mountain. Past the flange lubricator. And I'd be remiss if I didn't once again point out the eagles and the bird doo-doo. A lot of you got a kick out of that last time. And some folks mentioned there wasn't a whole lot of detail, so I'll try to point out some of the details this time. Some campers maybe down here having some fun. Possibly the rock climbers' vehicles. You can see they're climbing Granite Mountain. They're 2HO scale, which gives you an idea of the size of this mountain. There's also some deer at the top. They're kind of bored. They haven't really moved much in the last 5 years. The train just disappeared here into a two-turn helix on the lower tunnel, and will come out on the upper tunnel. While we wait, we can kind of look around at the trees and the narrow gauge. The narrow gauge still operates even after 5 years. That's Barbara's line. She kind of keeps the narrow gauge going, and that's where that tunnel on the left is. It's the narrow gauge, and there's a train sitting here behind the trees, passenger train. We'll come back here as our standard gauge train pops out of the tunnel. Heading into Mossy Rock. You'll notice from the video from 5 years ago that the scenery has been refreshed here. Some new vegetation has grown in the last 5 years, and I'll try to show you some of that as best I can. You'll see some new details here in the river. I'm going to pause our trains so I can talk about some of the stuff that's here at Mossy Rock. We have the narrow gauge train was able to go a little bit further than narrow gauge freight this time. That's about as far as it'll go. There is a narrow gauge stock pin in the back that no longer is serviced. And a narrow gauge turntable has been installed. You'll be able to see some of the scenery refresh here. This layout was set in 1988, but was started construction in real life in 1982, so it is somewhat of an older layout, and the scenery materials have improved over the years. The ballast you'll see is actual Rio Grande ballast that Doug sifted out from a location up in the Colorado mountains. You see the scenery just looks quite a bit better than it did five years ago, from 5 years ago. We'll get our train back underway here. And before any of you call me out on the bad signaling and horn usage, yes, I know, it's hard to film and run a train at the same time. No comments on that, please. This video is mostly for your enjoyment, not to be super prototypical with how the train actually runs. We do run the train's prototypical speeds here during operating sessions. We like to think of it as quality throttle time, so everyone gets to enjoy what they're doing. This is a quick little one-turn helix here. You'll notice there's a new backdrop on the wall and some new trees. Again, all this scenery was refreshed about 2 years ago. Train is now coming into Nukesack. There is a dual gauge track here for the narrow gauge trains. I know I incorrectly said dual gauge trains last video. That's for dual gauge track, narrow gauge trains for the narrow gauge operation that works here. We're also passing the GM 197 that actually appeared in the last video as well. It was parked up at Mossy Rock last time, back at Mossy Rock. It normally terminates right here. Just make sure all my switches are set properly here. These puzzle switches get a little complex. Past the narrow gauge and standard gauge stock pins, we do still service these during operating sessions. You can also see a narrow gauge K37 here ready for servicing or is being serviced, dumping some ash, maybe getting some, eventually we'll get some coal, and maybe take a spin on the turntable. The turntable does work, but you do have to align it manually, which is a little bit of a challenge sometimes. And again, there are some things that you don't normally see. There's some deer frolicking around in the back. Again, some details that are hidden. A lady here with her dog. I don't want to stay with our train, but also show you folks the detail of the layout, since that was brought up. We're going past the hopper car windbreak, similar to how the Rio Grande has one on Big Ten Curve. These cars may eventually get changed out for some different ones. We've also gained a lot of elevation. The train is now a little bit above my eye level. As we come here into Overlord, and the Titanic mine is still here, still serviced by the Mesa local. Power plant in the background. Pierce Mining Company, where the oil shale normally would load. We've now introduced steel operation to the railroad, and so oil shale doesn't run as much as it used to. The Pierce Mine may actually go out of business. We don't know yet. The train doesn't seem to want to come up here much anymore. As we leave Overlord, you'll notice a lot less green and a lot more grays and browns. We're getting to be above timberline here, and as we gain out elevation through all the rocks. You'll see that there's a knob here on the fascia, number 47 relief. That is a local control switch, so that we can control the switches locally. Normally during an operating session, all the mainline turnouts are locked, and the little yellow light is off. That means that you can turn that knob all you want, nothing happens. If you need to use that switch under local control, or any of the mainline switches under local control for your train, you'll have to ask the dispatcher, and he will unlock it for you if he can, and the light will turn on, and that gives you the ability to throw the switch locally using the knob on the fascia. The train just now disappeared into a curve. I'm not going to say horseshoe curve, that confuses people. It's not horseshoe curve like it is in Pennsylvania. It's just a nice curve to get the train to come back, continuing to climb elevation. As we come into relief, and back out of relief. Shortest siding on the railroad. Train now goes into the snow shed and into a large helix. I think it's a 6-turn helix in the garage. And so now we kind of wait. And you can follow the train on the lights. The one that's labeled ignore there is broken. But as we get going here, the lights should should work. You'll also see a point here where there's a line. That's when the train comes back into the house from the garage. And there you can see one of the lights just lit up on the left. This is the longest tunnel on the railroad all the way to Stillaguamish. So we're not going to wait for the train over here. We're going to head back over to Stillaguamish. This area's changed quite a bit since the 2014 video. The mock-up for the BOF is now in place. This BOF is the basic oxygen furnace. I don't claim to know anything about steel, but Doug tells me this building is probably too small, and it's pretty darn big. Steel operations were very massive on the East Coast. Being that I'm from Colorado, don't know anything about steel. You'll see there's an Amtrak locomotive sitting here. This is for a train that goes to St. Paul. Short Amtrak train that switches cars with the main Amtrak trains 5 and 6 that come through on the main line. You'll see some catenary has been put up here in Stillaguamish, as well as quite a bit's been done with the steel since the last video. And some scenery material has been put in. Buildings have been put in. The interchange track is still here. Currently only 4 cars. And we didn't run the snowplow last session. But that track gets switched a lot. So we'll sit here. Train's about to come back into the house. And again, see the line next to the light that's flickering there. That's the sign that the train's about to come back into the house, into the basement. The track to the right is the track our train will be on. That's the Granite Mountain Main. The track going off to the left is the Milwaukee to St. Paul. And likewise, we have a few here. The track where the cars are parked is the Milwaukee interchange, and the track to the right of it is the Stillaguamish siding, or what we call the north track. We're always looking north into most of the scenes here on this railroad, so we call the tracks north track and south track for clarification, rather than main and siding. There we are. Doug tells me that the catenary will likely never get strung with real wire due to the amount of operators that have to reach into different scenes. Yeah, I missed that grade crossing badly. Come by the Milwaukee engine house. We still swap diesels for electrics and electrics for diesels at the engine house for trains going to St. Paul. The St. Paul yard is behind the wall, straight ahead of us, behind our train. Crossing the diamond here to Arrow Yard. Still on the main line. Not much has changed here at Arrow. The tunnel in the back is still serving as a Y. The track will maybe someday connect to staging for Vancouver. There may be a Canadian Pacific or Canadian National train that goes that way someday. So far, not happening yet. Coal trains still load here. We have a Rio Grande coal and a GE coal. Several trains. BN coal also comes in here and loads. We just drop in the plastic loads from the bin. Send the train back on its way. This is a pretty busy location now with steel for an operator. And then the next part is fairly new. You'll see scenery now at Totem. This wasn't done before. So we have lots of nice new scenery here in the last couple of years. I'm going to just park our train for a moment. And yeah, next to the Totem Depot there is a totem. Things are always being added. One of the most recent that I've noticed here is the moose down in the river. Not exactly sure how he made it onto that island, but he's there. The track in the back, kind of elevated, is the Victor branch. That's where all the steel trains go to get to the blast furnace. There's also some switching that's done and some other trains that come in there to serve the new steel complex. So while our train is parked here at Totem, we're going to follow the Victor branch. We'll come back to our train. So the Victor branch still comes over here. This is Victor. The oil shale train is parked over here, has been unloaded, and it's just waiting its next go around, if that ever happens, if it ever gets the call. This is again very busy with steel. There's a hot job and a mill job and several other jobs that come in and out, so it gets to be really busy. You'll also notice the bridge in the back has been improved to handle not only the weight but the heat from the bottle cars, all the molten steel, excuse me. The area here in front's been designated as the slag dump. I think that, not sure what that lime shed tag is, but it may be out of place. There's also a train that switches the Industries at Westview. This train is in the process of being switched. Sort of ended here last session. And of course, most of you are wanting to see the steel, so we'll get on with the steel. You'll see the Coke Express and the ore train sitting here. And the tracks behind them that are going up in elevation rapidly go to the High Line. And I'll zoom out best I can to show you the Pacific Steel blast furnace. The High Line is brand new. That just got installed in the last 30 days and it's not finished. Now Doug has several more details to add, paint of course and some other details, so it'll be pretty nice and it'll fit right in when it's all finished. There'll be lights I think on it as well. It's gonna be dressed up very well. And of course we have Pacific Steel, the blast furnace named after one of Doug's relatives, I believe his mother. He'll probably correct me on that. It's named Irene. You can see all the details. If I can get this camera to cooperate, we can try to zoom in on some of the details here in the blast furnace. This is just me filming to show you the railroad. I'm not a professional. Let's see some of the details. There is electroluminescence in the troughs to light up, just to simulate the steel flowing and dropping down into the bottle cars. The blast furnace has won several awards over the last few years as well across the United States. So Some of you that may have seen it in a contest may recognize it. Trying to zoom in. This is thousands of hours worth of work. All the little details. It also fully lights up. Every lamp shade has a light in it. Weathered, scenic. Kind of get down in there. Those of you that know about steel can comment on it. I don't know enough about steel to know anything that's well done or not well done, and I'm sure it's possibly too small. I don't know. Again, I don't know anything. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Doug did a fantastic job on it, and that's all I know. Shadows are kind of getting in the way, but you can get a general idea. It was even quite so tall it had to be notched into the upper part of the fascia here so it would completely fit. And there's some stuff down here at the bottom where the ore and the slag and all that get dumped. Some windows that are broken. Just an incredible amount of work, and you have to be truly passionate for it. And I can't quite probably show you all of it, but I'll see if I can hold the camera around the back side. Maybe we can try to get some of it. I honestly have no idea what I'm filming, so bear with me. So just try to show you every angle, since some of you have really wanted to see this. All right. There's a working scale in here to weigh the cars. An abandoned warehouse. Coming around here to the harbor. We still have the Foss barge. These cars will sail off onto Anchorage, Alaska. We don't really sail the boat as much as we used to. We more just swap out the cars. But still is fun to switch. A lot of guys enjoy it. Me included. This is one of the more fun jobs. The steel jobs go very quickly during an operating session. See the pipe mill in the back. Well, there's still some work to be done, and hopefully I'll be able to do another follow-up video when we get a little closer to having it complete. I should say when Doug gets it further done. Alright, we're going to rejoin our train back over here at Totem now. Try to blow the horn this time. Maybe I can get one right. The Granite Mountain main will then disappear under the bridges. And we'll just go ahead and let the train run by here. The train would normally end up in the Portland staging yard, which is below us to my left, and I'll show you that once the train disappears. The train is not going to go into the staging yard at the moment. And this is the Portland staging. again, the layout was built in the 80s, so you'll see a lot of these old snap twin coil machines under here. Most of this railroad is operated with machines just like that. There's a few Switchmasters, but a lot of them are the old school snappers. And again, the car cards. You'll see that the elevated track goes over to the Chicago yard. I had pointed out that it comes out over this side and into a helix. You can kind of see part of the helix there. And you can see it through the slots there. The Chicago trains and the Portland trains all use the helix. They each now have their own track. They did back in 2014 as well. But prior to that, they shared the one track through here. It was a little confusing. But anyway, you can kind of get an idea. All kinds of stuff in here that's left over from when the railroad was originally built. And I guess I'll just end this by saying thanks for watching. And if you have any comments or questions about the railroad, please go ahead and post down below. I know I didn't do the greatest job filming this, probably, or speaking today. Hopefully it was a little better than the 2014 video. You got to see some new scenery. And the steel mill complex for sure is really an exciting part of the operation now. So yeah, we're just looking forward to future operating sessions, and hope you stick with me here on my channel, Rio Grande Fan. I'll keep posting some things. I have some videos of the CTC machine in operation I'm going to try to get posted as well. And yeah, just thanks for watching, and keep running your model trains. Until next time, Rio Grande Fan out.